person gives you a reaction that you don't understand, that you consider what has happened in their past to lead to that reaction, not what is wrong with them.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Sense podcast from Samaritan's Well here in beautiful Richardson, Texas. And we have Dr. Melanie Gray from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's quite the honor.
I hope you're staying warm up there, but I understand you natives are used to cold weather, so praise God.
Yes, I'm pretty used to it, born and raised. And this is a real winter. We haven't had a real winter in a while, so okay. I won't whine.
Okay, there you go. See, I get a lot of people that say, I like a real winter. And then I get about half the people that go, I'm ready for it to warm up again. I'm in Texas. So anyhow, Dr. Gray, so glad to have you. Dr. Gray, obviously she's got her PhD, but she's also a registered nurse, an educator. She really works on trauma-informed leadership and burnout prevention. She has the Stop It method, which we got to hear about that, and Melanie Gray Solutions. And then we can find her at drmelaniegray.com. But we really want to hear, how did you get into trauma work? What kind of led you in that direction? I know you started as a nurse, so obviously you're seeing trauma in the hospital. But tell us a little about your story, please.
Yes. So through my course, traveling, my journey of my career, I was doing clinical work, then nursing education, which again, during COVID, just amplified the need to help people work through trauma and look at ways to help them understand the trauma that their patients were seeing, because we noticed a couple things. Our patients were changing and our team members were stressed and changing as well. So how do we help the team members, one, understand trauma, their own trauma and triggers, and then so they become more sensitive to their patients?
Oh, and that's excellent. Yeah.
So that work is what kind of led me into just digging deeper and working to help other organizations become sensitive and create cultures of wellness.
Dr. Gray, or I'll call you Melanie, you invited me to do that. Melanie, when you go into an organization, are they typically saying, we don't know what we need, but please come help us? Or is it more like, wow, we're dealing with so much trauma internally and externally. Please come help us with this trauma. How does it go when you communicate with them to start with, to get it initiated? And then what do you do when you go into an organization like that?
Well, first of all, there needs to be an awareness. Often organizations understand that something's wrong in the culture. There's turnover, they're not meeting the matrices, people are frustrated, but they don't really understand why. And so I introduced the concept of understanding first, what is trauma-informed care? And in its simplest form, it is understanding when a person gives you a reaction that you don't understand, that you consider what has happened in their past to lead to that reaction, not what is wrong with them. Now, that what in that past could have been a trigger from another work experience, from their childhood. It could have been from what happened at home that day. Did you have a fight with your kid? But it's understanding and being sensitive to what has happened rather than judging the person. It's also important to understand when we are working in a team, most very frequently leaders celebrate that person who is naturally outgoing, naturally outspoken, naturally energetic. And sometimes we dismiss those that aren't, rather than considering why doesn't he speak up?
Sure.
And then creating opportunities for that person to develop a voice so that we develop them so everyone gets encouraged and becomes uplifted. But it's important that leaders understand that also the prevalence. So I want them to understand, one, what is trauma informed care, is having
Mm-hmm.
that sensitivity and empathy to understanding what has happened, not what's wrong with Doug,
Right,
you
right.
know, but also understanding the prevalence that this, even the Center for Disease Control estimates that over 70%, almost over 67% or more of all Americans had some type of adverse childhood experience. Now, you fast forward to what we saw happen in COVID, to during the pandemic, and what we're seeing now in the world with all the uncertainties people are facing with AI, the world, the
Mm-hmm.
economy,
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. People
Sure.
aren't leaving that. That is impacting them internally. And so it's helping, I want to help organizations understand they must be sensitive to this, to all of these instances that can impact behavior at work, so that we can support people at being their best. Now, I know that people have to do their job, right? We have to stay viable as an organization. But
Mm-hmm.
I believe being sensitive and at least putting it out there. This happened. There was a fire in our community. Are any of you affected? We
Sure.
understand what's happening in Venezuela. Do any of you have family? We want to be sensitive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just saying, okay, there's space, we acknowledge you, means a lot to people. And
Mm-hmm.
when we
Mm-hmm.
don't, we cause them to draw in, to pull back, and not feel safe. And then they don't give their best when they don't feel that they're in a place of safety.
That's really good. Just acknowledgement, it does contribute to safety, doesn't it? And Dr. Gray, I think two broad areas that you just mentioned. That Doug that we're talking about, he could be coming in here because for various reasons, at 37 years old, all of that fighting that between his mom and dad that kept him up between 6 and 10 years old is coming to the forefront. That could be through counseling. It could be going through some fighting with his wife that's bringing it to the surface. Or Doug could be in here today and he was in a car wreck last week that he didn't tell anybody about. And he's
Mm-hmm.
in physical pain and trauma from the car wreck, or his wife got hurt and that was traumatic. So it could be something very recent that happened to him. It could be something from years ago, but those are the two broad categories that
Yes,
anyone could bring into the workforce.
absolutely. And we cannot ignore it. At the end of the day, we're human beings and we
Mm-hmm.
really were created to live in community. But with virtual working, we have the community that used to be embedded in our jobs doesn't
Mm-hmm.
exist in the same way. We don't
It's
go to lunch
fractured, isn't it?
together
It's very
anymore.
fractured.
It's very fractured. We've become very wide and deep, very wide as organizations. So the cohorts, the community that we had in certain departments, I'm in this department. You identify with your department. You
Sure.
identify with your team. We used to, and I have go to lunch together.
Mm-hmm.
People don't go to lunch together. You don't have
Mm-hmm.
those conversations in the same way that build community and keep people together, because people work, they come to work not just for the job, but if they like who they're working with, right?
They do.
And a lot of so teaching and encouraging organizations not to give up on that, right? And I know that young people aren't going to stay the 30, 40 years that we might have stayed in a
Yeah,
role.
that's
And
true.
and the role and
Yeah.
society isn't going to allow them to do that. But how can we help them? How can we do the best that we can in the 5 or 6 years that we have them, so that everyone lives well and whole?
That's so good. When you come in, do you start with the leadership of an organization and try to kind of get them on board and direct the direction we're going to go? What steps do you take?
Well, first they have to understand what trauma informed care is. And then leaders have to understand what it is. And then they have to do some self identification.
Okay.
What triggers do I have? Because when we're talking about 67, 70%, or almost everyone, let's say, that's including leadership. We sometimes have this impression that leaders are impervious to
Right.
pain, trauma, discomfort,
Right.
accidents,
Yeah, they've left
family.
all that behind.
They left all that alone behind when they got to the desk, when they got the title.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so not true.
No.
Often they sometimes have some of the most intense issues to work with. But leaders have to understand their own triggers, and they
Mm-hmm.
have to know how they're showing up. I use myself as an example. I'm you can't tell, but I'm 6 feet tall.
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
tall. And
That's model height. Wow.
yeah, so I can come in a room, and I'm pretty
Sure.
outspoken.
Oh,
So I
sure.
can come in the room and I can take it over. And I had to learn that I would do better to sit down and be quiet and listen,
Mm.
because I can take over the room and then no one will speak.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to learn how to drop my tone and speak more slowly because people were afraid of me. I'm just telling you my truth.
Okay. 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 There you go. I got
And
it. I
so
got it.
I had to learn those things. So every leader does. We have to
Right.
have come to Jesus moment with ourselves. And then we
Mm-hmm.
have to be willing to put in the time to create the culture, because it does flow down and it takes time. And people take more time than we want most of the time. People hurt. And there are a lot of people
Yes.
hurting, but we can still get the job done. I think that employers that have organizations that have EAP programs, employee assistance, underutilize them.
Yep.
Nationally, less than 6% of people that have access to EAP actually use it. And employers could really, if they offer that, could really offer support and amplify their willingness to help people by funneling them through a resource that they're already paying for.
That's
But
good,
then, to your
Melanie.
question, we have to look at, then once the leaders look at themselves, they have to determine how committed they're going to be.
Okay, let me stop you for just a minute if you don't mind. The verse that comes to mind is 1 Corinthians 11:31. For if we would judge ourselves, we would not be judged. Now, my mentor taught me that the 11th commandment, and he would always say it like this. I know I'm going to find it someday. I haven't found it, but the 11th commandment is thou shalt not kid thyself. And and we know, Melanie, that a lot of those leaders have driven themselves, a lot of them because there is a trauma driving them, right? If they've got a trauma of, hey, you're not good enough, or nothing less than 100, it will work, or we're only going to love you conditionally, that's all a type of trauma that will drive behavior. We want to see those leaders with excellence, but we don't want them driven because of the trauma, right? We want them
Right.
driven because, they want to serve others and do a good job, etc. But I really like that. We have to say, look at yourself first, because the triggers, I tell people, what I teach my clients is a trigger is very simple. It means dig here, right? We got to find
Mm-hmm.
out what's triggering you if you're being triggered, because what's the world's way? And you've seen this 1,000 times like me. Oh, I get triggered by that. I'm just going to avoid it from now on, or build a wall,
Yeah.
or work around it instead of dealing with it.
And that's how we ignore some of our team members. If someone reminds us of someone that triggers us. I
Yes.
remember I was teaching, and I had a student. Every time he saw me, he went into a sweat. I mean, for real.
Oh
And
my.
it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before. So I
Okay.
pulled him aside one day, And I said, help me understand what you see when you look at me, because I need to understand.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to help you.
Mm-hmm.
But you sweat. You just go into this situation. And he said to me, every time I see you, I see my dad. And my dad never said anything good to me. I said, but I am trying to help you. He said, I know, but I'm so afraid of being talked down to. He said
Mm.
that I can't even, I become so afraid I pull back. And so we worked on a signal plan that I said, I've got to talk to you. I can't not teach
Right.
you and
Right.
not talk to you. This has
Right.
got to happen. But this is the
Yes.
thing. Um, when you're feeling overwhelmed, you have permission to say, Dr. Gray, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I need to step back. Or Dr. Gray, can I come to you and answer that question? And so we worked it out, and
Well,
then
that's
he
good.
grew, and he didn't need to always do that, but he needed the safe space.
So
I've worked,
good.
yeah, and I've worked with people where help me understand why you are responding this
Mm-hmm.
way. This is what I said. What did you hear? Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is really important. And you don't have to do it all the time with people, but you have to I think them knowing, okay, they were real with me. I
Mm-hmm.
can be. There's a trusted space here. And so leaders have to first understand what trauma informed care is. They have to be willing to do a self assessment around their own triggers. And my phrase is not scriptural, though, is denial is not a river in Egypt.
I like it. I like it.
you know,
Denial is not a river in Egypt.
no,
And I will tell you, I have something that I've been saying recent years that has a lot of parallel with that. You can't honor without honesty.
you
You
cannot.
know, you can't honor someone. And yeah, and so that was very honoring the way you approached him, and you got honesty out of it. You presented some honesty. Hey, we need to work this out, but let me hear you. So you went back to that earlier point. You were acknowledging him and his significance and the need for you two to work together. And I
Mhm.
love just coming to him and just like, help me understand, because that's kind of in general one of the most gentle ways that you can approach someone is just help me understand this.
Well, and we
So
all
that
have a
is, yeah.
perspective, right? And in
Hmm.
in organizations, we all sometimes the leader a decision has to be made, right?
Right.
You're
Right.
at the top, in your role because you are good at it and the organization
Hmm.
needs you to make decisions, but you can still honor your team by explaining why. You can still honor your team by sharing the information. This is what is happening. We have lost a big account. We have to shift people. This is the impact.
Yes.
I'm asking you to do ABC. And then what is your insight? It's not that it's because I said it.
Yes.
Uh, so we have to honor the people and include people and give them a voice of understanding when we can. Because people are going to think anyway, they're going to
Right.
talk anyway. And
Right.
so it's very helpful to navigate the conversation with truth so that you're not having to clean up the mistruth. And that goes really
That
fast.
that's so good, Melanie, because we all know silence leads to confusion.
Yes,
I
it
mean,
does.
yeah, silence leads to confusion. And like you said, it leads to rumors, sometimes exaggerating. Of course, our default, in a sense, is thinking the worst. Oh, they're going to fire everybody in the company, or, I might as well look
Hmm.
for another job or whatever. But if there's communication, even if it's bad, right? People can handle bad news. Hey, this is not good news. We're having to shut down this section, but we're doing everything we can to, to keep everyone employed. I read about a billionaire recently. He's older, he's in his 80s, he's still alive. And I forget how many thousands of employees, but one of his claim to fame, which I was just blown away by, is he never laid off a single employee.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know how you did that. You must have hired some good ones. Either that or they just became loyal. That would probably be a good one to study because, I mean, obviously people quit and left and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, he proved his loyalty for decades. If I hire you, you're gonna have to do something real bad if you just want to leave because I'm not gonna lay you off. I mean, but I love that this approach from the top down that you're talking about, Melanie.
Well, and it's important. Everyone doesn't necessarily want to grow. I mean, some people do like
Yeah.
to come to work. They're not looking to rise. They deserve respect too. And often they're not. Organizations have to avoid uh, discrediting the people who are happy just doing their job and going home every day
Uh-huh.
because
Sure.
we create trauma and traumatize those individuals. It's almost demeaning. Oh, Sally's been doing that for 30 years. Well, what if Sally wants to do that for 30 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
What if she is good with putting her time into her family and not the rise? Everyone's life is different, and their why for coming to work is different. Their why for
Mm-hmm.
showing up, it varies.
That.
We shouldn't judge people. So, organizational intelligence, when it comes
Mm-hmm.
to the organizational communication stream, that's really important in not triggering and traumatizing people. Always communicating by emails that are 3 pages long.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk to people.
Well,
Humanize the organization.
we have a great example of that in our family. My father-in-law, who just recently passed away, but he had a career with DuPont, and he was a
Wow.
salesman that went out to these different locations that were doing paint and body, and he sold the DuPont paint, which used to have kind of a corner on the market decades ago.
I remember.
But they kept asking him to move up to management, to move up, and finally he decided to do it. I think it was in the San Francisco area, and he was sitting behind a desk all day and he was miserable. And I think he made it for 18 months and he said, "Put me back in the field. I got to go see my guys." And that's just where he thrived. I mean, they didn't know it, but it was in a sense traumatizing to put him behind the desk because he needed to be out there meeting people and shaking hands and rubbing shoulders and doing what he was really good at.
And loving it. And
Yes,
loving
he
it,
loved
right?
it.
And
Yeah.
loving it. I was at the bedside as a staff nurse uh, into my 40s.
Okay. Okay.
And people kept saying to me, "Why are you still doing that?" I didn't try to move up. I didn't have any desire to
Sure.
until later. But I got that, they were almost ridiculing me for,
Hmm.
doing something that I enjoyed doing and was good at. And so I think we have to be more mindful of people, who they are, how they show up, so that we help them feel valued no matter what their personal choices are. Because there should be life after work. And that is I think, another important uh, insight that I like to help organizations see, that you want people to thrive outside of work. So
Yes.
there should be boundaries around emailing people and messaging them in the team's chat at 8 o'clock and expecting them to answer. There
It's
should
good.
be boundaries around why we all having meetings until 4:30 on Friday.
Yeah.
Why can't your Friday by noon be your shut off time and let people catch up and be able to go home and have a life? It is not you work, in my opinion, my humble opinion,
Hmm.
is that we
Hmm.
should live to work. We work to live. I'm sorry. We work to live, not live to work, because There is more to you. We're created for more. And it's not loving. And the word says, "Oh man, in nothing, no man, anything but love." Right.
That's
So
good.
let's love on the people and treat them kindly.
That's so good. I was looking for this book that I just started the other day. It's by a Harvard teacher. He's been at Harvard now for decades. I think his last name is Crittenden, if I'm not mistaken. But anyhow, the reason I wanted to read one of his books is because I came across a snippet of boundaries. He had just gotten his MBA, gets this kind of high powered job, and his big boss comes to him a week or two in and says, uh, I'm going to call him Chris. I can't remember exactly his name right now. But he's like, Chris, we've got this big project next week. Everyone's going to meet at 3 p.m. on Sunday, and we're going to work on this till we get it done. And he goes, oh, well, boss, you know what? I may have forgot to tell you, but Sunday I've dedicated to just being with God and with my family and going to church. So I mean, I can't come in at Sunday at 3. And he goes, well, he goes and checks with the team and he says, okay, you can't come in Sunday at 3. Then we'll do Saturday at 3. And he said, oh, boss, I think I forgot to tell you, but I promised my wife and family I'm going to be with them on every Saturday because I've got to work during the week. So the boss pulls back and talks to the team. Well, can we do it on Friday? Yes, that'll work perfect. Yes. But I just love that story, right? He's not like, he doesn't get all upset, but he sticks to his guns. And he was talking about how some of those boundaries, you got to be 100%. If you're 98%, the slippery slope just opens it up, doesn't it?
It does. I think there's a couple things that we always, so often, we equate success with title and more income.
Yeah.
I think that is not fair to humanity.
Yes.
Success is what you decide. If a person's a janitor and they are a loving, good, quality person who loves what they do, yes, they're just as professional as the person that is a CEO. It's not based on title and things. Everyone has value because they are. Everyone is a gift.
Yes,
and there
I
are
love that.
choices that people have to make. I had to make a choice. I was in my career, I had gotten a promotion. I was managing a bunch of clinics. Mm-hmm. And then my father had a stroke. And I thought I was on my way, man. You couldn't have told me. I was praising God. I'm on the road. I'm moving up. I'm going to do my thing. And then my father, I saw myself doing the whole executive track. I was moving. And then my father had a stroke.
Oh, no.
And I realized that I couldn't take care of him and do the job, the justice that it needed. Yep. So I had to make a decision what's important in my life right now. Mm-hmm. And so I stepped down from my role and I took care of my dad. Mm-hmm. And then later on, I was able to start my trajectory again.
That's good.
But I made by then I had made some different choices about how much could I give. I mean, you have to decide how much can you give and how much are you willing to give. I think that employers, in terms of not traumatizing, guilting people, as people are moving up, we have to determine how are we setting a culture for how this role will look and the expectations so that people, as they move up or advance, they know what is going to be required of them.
That's so good. That's so good. Because what you had, I would call an idolatry test. It's like God says, well, is this an idol for you or not? And for all of us, things can start to become an idol, but you brought that down by saying, no, I have to take care of my dad and do something that works with taking care of my dad. And so all of us have those idolatry tests.
We did. And so, I cried. I did not go through the idolatry test without tears. I'm not going to tell you I was strong. I cried.
No, I'm sure.
Listen, Lord, why have you forsaken me? Oh
Yes.
Lord, you oh my goodness. I cry. I was a pity party queen for a minute,
Yes.
okay?
I get
But I
it.
did it and I don't regret it because one thing I've learned is that time is an equalizer.
Hmm.
And if you trust God, he can redeem the time. and
Yes.
and he did for me. He redeemed the time for me, and he blessed me with favor and opportunities later in my career that have resulted in me being where I am now. So I think we have organizations have to be committed to the individual, committed
Hmm.
to the person. We're still human beings, and work toward building the community and understanding everybody who is showing up with some kind of history. The other
Hmm.
thing around trauma informed care I want to bring up is when we're
Yes.
talking about trauma, we have to understand the research shows that trauma can transcend 3 generations at least.
Yes.
And if you and I were to have a longer conversation, we could both probably identify uh, things our parents told us or taught us or beliefs they embedded in us that
Yes.
may have resulted in our how we think and traumas, right? And
Yes.
so this in child rearing and parenting and family circles, so these things can create trauma, and so people bring all of that. They bring all of their story. Trauma transcends 3 generations, so people are showing up with all themselves, and we have to understand that these histories exist, not with
Yes.
judgment, but with empathy and compassion.
So good. It is so good. One of the things that has been fascinating is that when they've studied Holocaust survivors, the studies have found altered stress hormone regulation and cortisol levels, plus changes in genes related to stress response. And some research has seen those markers in the children and even the grandchildren of these people that went through profound trauma. I mean, talk
Yes.
about to the second and third or third and fourth generation.
Yes. So the change in the DNA is around, it was called epigenetics. So
Epigenetics, yeah.
research has shown that stress doesn't change the DNA sequence, but it does change how the DNA responds.
Okay.
So have you ever seen a family and you say, I wonder why they all, and they'll tell you, everybody in our family got sugar.
Right, right, right.
Everybody in our
Yep,
family has rheumatism, heart disease.
yep.
And we think that it's potentially because that in due to the stress, if you look at African Americans in all the ongoing stress we've had
Right.
as a people over the years, we could go on, you'll see those changes. Interesting about the Holocaust, it was the study of individuals that had uh, come through the Holocaust that really resulted in the study of trauma informed care because researchers wanted
Okay.
to understand that influence. And
Wow. I didn't realize
that
that part.
hmm as researchers began to look at study the people that gone through the Holocaust, that then caused them to go back and say, "Oh yeah, our indigenous people and our African American sisters and brothers, they had some trauma too. Oh, let's look
Yes.
at them." But it really,
Yes.
we so studies around other cultures in our community didn't happen until much later. But again, it is happening, and we're starting to understand it more. Because trauma can start in utero, actually, when that mother, to your point, is
I
stressed.
believe that.
The cortisol levels in the mother impact the brain development of the embryo. We know that children, even in their infancy, if they're not held and nurtured, their brain is being wired so they can get PTSD, which results in
Yes.
children. And it goes in that child brain, the development of that child's brain. And so
Hmm.
children become adults. And so we go on and on. The trajectory goes on and on. So empathy is so important to all.
And in Dr. Gray, it seems like when we talk about how it affects generations, it makes it even more important that we say, okay, we're going to do everything we can to deal with the trauma now, to deal with the stress response now, to try to, slow down and hopefully stop that passing on. And we're more passing on the good stuff, right? We have to be pioneers in our own generation, right? To work on that.
Yes, I mean when you and I in our world outside of work, we have to continue to love, encourage, and build people. When we are
Mm-hmm.
at work, we can at least do our best to not trigger people, to look at our culture.
Yeah.
Every organization has some things that they do that could be exhausting people mentally and emotionally. Like
Sure.
are you having too many rollouts?
Mm-hmm.
Are you having too many changes?
Mm-hmm.
Are you allowing people to really understand their job, their role? Or could there be a better pause, a different
Mm.
timing in the rollout? Are we getting their input, the team's input at every level before some changes are made so that we really understand the impact? Or are we just pushing down from the top to the bottom?
Good.
Are we, do we shut the office down at 5 o'clock? Or are
Mm-hmm.
we just kind of waiting each other out so we can see
Mm-hmm.
who's going to be seen leaving last
Right.
by who?
Yeah.
Where
Who's
does,
leaving first? Who's leaving last?
yeah. And we don't, oh, well, gee, Henry is leaving every day at 4:30. I mean,
Yeah. Right. Right.
leave Henry alone.
Right. Well, yeah, Henry may be honestly the healthiest of us all. And guess what? We know there's also studies that have been done that if you know mentally that you have 8 hours to get something done, you're much more likely to get it done in those 8 hours than if you give yourself 12 hours to do it, right? And
Hmm.
basically, it's like, oh, the amount of time it takes me to do something expands to the amount of time that I give to do it. I had a client a few years back, and he was in some particular field with attorneys that, at least what he told me, and I guess I've heard it from a couple others, that, oh, it was just normal to work 12 or 14-hour days. And I'm like, it may be normal, but you can't do it forever. You can't compromise integrity forever, whether it's your physical integrity, your
Hmm.
emotional or soul integrity, even your spiritual integrity, your family integrity. You can't do that forever. Maybe for a short amount of time, but something's going to give. There's going to be alcohol, drugs, affairs, burnout, quitting the job,
Hmm.
whatever. Something's going to give.
Well, it is, even iron wears out.
There you go. There
Everything
you go.
does wear out, and there's a cost to be paid. The question I ask individuals in their organizations or individually is, what is the impact you really want to make?
Okay.
If this is all about just a check, there's a lot of things you can do to make money.
Right.
And it's
Right.
not just how much money you make, it's how you're managing it, right? The millionaire next door, a lot of these people in these books, they have,
Sure.
it's how they manage, not how much more they made, right? So, but
Sure.
what impact do you really want to leave? Because what do you really want said about you? Do you want to work all these hours and your children don't even know you, that you're missing
Right.
those memories? When you are no longer working, what are you going to do for friends? Because when you're on, and when they turn you off, you're off. No email, no calendar, nobody cares where you are, what you did.
It's
And
true.
you have to find life outside of work. Who are you going to be
Yes.
known for?
Yes. That's good. Those are such important questions. And when you get in front of the actual organization, you might work with the leaders first. What
Yes.
does that look like when you're actually able to talk with the people that are working for the company?
Well, they're usually in an aha moment. Oh wow,
Okay.
we didn't realize that, because we didn't see our community. The other thing I'd like to add is, when possible, depending on the organization, I'd like to help them understand their community.
Okay.
Because if you understand the community, you understand who's working for you quite often and
Okay.
what influences them. Uh, if your plant, for example, is in the inner city, you should understand what that looks like. Is it a food desert?
Sure.
Are there food deserts? Do people have transportation? What are they afraid of? What are people bringing? Because it colors, if we don't understand our communities outside of our organizations, we don't understand the people and the challenges, the stressors
Hmm.
we're that they're bringing, or how we could be amplifying the challenges that they are having. Because I live in the suburbs. Well, you might, and that's nothing wrong with that. But if you come into work every day, I worked with an organization that at a particular site that was an urban
Hmm.
health center, and
Hmm.
51% of the people lived in the suburbs. So they did not understand. They didn't get the patients. They're like, oh my God,
Sure.
they are frequent flyers. They are
Sure.
non-compliant. These are drug people. But no, you don't understand that they cannot. That patient came back because there was no place to get their medication. They
Right.
uh they came in here with some chips because there's no grocery store and they were
Hmm.
hungry. We
Hmm.
cannot judge people. We have to
Yeah.
understand the
Yeah.
communities that we serve. Even as organizations, people are living, they're going home and they're living in communities that have needs. Their family has needs. Their extended family might have needs. We can't not work in isolation.
We have to love them and not condemn them. We have to get down on their level instead of, staying up high and looking down on them.
Yeah, and it takes time. It takes, 3 to 5 years to change behavior in cultures. So
Okay.
leaders, executive leaders have to be willing to make that kind of commitment to their organization. Programs don't change behaviors. Uh, programs are just programs, and in many instances team members don't care about, oh, another program, yawn yawn, wink wink, nod nod, and then
Sure.
nothing changes. The leaders have to be committed to ongoing change and assessment and reassessment. You have to do a climate survey to see where people are, and then you have to be willing to implement changes. I mean, it could be something simple like, we're going to close down for lunch between or every from 12 to 1, or every department decides when they're going to shut down for lunch. No meetings during that time. Give people dedicated breaks.
It's good.
I don't want to bring back the old bell. I don't know if you're old enough to remember when there was a break bell, and you ever worked in a time where there was the bell for the break, your
I
morning break,
don't
your afternoon. Are
think
you are
so.
you are you as old as me? No, don't.
I am
But,
60. I am 60. So
oh,
I've been around a while, but I
well,
just
you
don't
are.
think
But
I had the bell. But
okay, well, there were in foundries there used to be bells, and the
okay,
bell was
okay.
break different break bells and lunch bell. Now I'm not saying bring back the bell, but
Yeah, I get it. I get it. But having those clear delineations is so important. And Dr. Gray, I was just thinking about one of the great cultural transformations in our country, and I'll explain it. Maybe you heard of this, but Angola Prison in Louisiana. I actually visited there on a prison
mm,
ministry trip in the mid 90s. And I'd been to a number of other prisoners doing, volunteer ministry and stuff. And Angola in Louisiana, 20,000 acres in the middle of a swamp, darkest, most depressed place I had ever been. And
wow,
you would talk to prisoners, even the Christians, and there was a heaviness about them. I don't think any of them liked the warden. They thought he was oppressive and this, that, and the other. Well, a few years after I went, a Christian man became warden in Angola, and he started bringing in prison fellowship. He started bringing in our children's ministry. It was Awana, and letting the dads study with their kids that are outside of the
wow.
prison. And they and he changed that whole culture. Like you said, it took some time, but he started treating them like they were humans and not animals. And I
Yeah,
mean, when we
everyone
see this, yeah.
We have to have forgiveness. I don't know if you're a Christian and you believe in God and his word, we have to be lights
Yes.
in darkness, and we cannot expect the world to act like they're saved. They're going to be
Yes.
like the world. But
Yes.
even if you're not a believer, what does it cost you to be kind? What does it cost you to be sensitive?
Yes.
What does it cost you to take a moment to breathe so that you're thoughtful in your responses versus reactionary and potentially harmful and hurting? Right? So we all make choices every day. And so I want to help leaders understand, one, that everyone has some level of trauma. Everyone has triggers. Know yours. Understand that sometimes, use your EAP programs, amplify them to allow people to get help. It is true. You're in a business sometimes, and you can only, you have to keep your eye on that. But recognizing someone as a human being, giving them value, saying thank you, showing appreciation, it goes a long way.
Yes.
And it costs you nothing to do that.
It's so good. There's an old quote, and I may not get it exactly right. I was trying to look it up. Um, it's something like this. Oh, it's attributed often to Robert Louis Stevenson. Don't judge each day by the harvest you reap, but by the seeds that you plant.
That's right.
And when we talk about love, Dr. Gray, Ephesians 5 says, well, no man ever hated himself, but he nourishes and cherishes. So, really, what we're talking about is, hey, we need to nourish people and cherish people, by the way, including ourselves, right? That
Mm-hmm.
example that I gave, he was trying to not only love his company that was paying him, but to love his God, his family, and himself. Therefore, he set boundaries and he stuck with them.
Yeah, you have to have boundaries, and that's part of self care. We
Yes.
Self care is another facet of embracing a trauma informed culture. It's giving the room for people to eat, to drink their water, to
Yes.
walk and get away from their desk, to put boundaries around work, so that is close much as possible. A 40-hour work week is a 40-hour work week, and that means
Mhm.
we don't abuse your salaried
Mhm.
employees, because very often they're working way over 40. And I understand that sometimes there's a give and take,
Right.
and you might have
Right.
to do a little
Right.
more, but we shouldn't be pushing people to 60, 80 hours a week. And then it should stop on Friday and give them their weekend off. People need to
Yes.
regroup and recharge, because people
Yes.
become burned out when they never get to turn off.
So good. It is so good. Dr. Gray, this has been a fascinating conversation. Do you have any kind of final thoughts that you want to make sure our listeners get? You've given us so much to chew on and think on, but any kind of final thoughts to pull it together or
Well, I would want them to know that they are a gift, and to show up as the gift that they are every single day, with a smile, with a warm email, with a thank you, so that you spread that gift of kindness to your teams, because everyone is a gift, and they want to be seen and heard. So treat them that way. Remember that trauma informed care means considering what has happened, not what is wrong. So when you're
good?
encountering situations that you don't understand, don't judge, ask, because you're talking to a gift and you want to treat that gift well.
That's so good. That is so good. I remember the great Oswald Chambers from My Utmost for His Highest. He
Yes,
said, when you look at a man or a woman, say to yourself, that man, that woman, perfect in Christ Jesus.
that's right.
That would raise the way that we treat each other, wouldn't it?
It
Well,
would.
thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Gray, for being on. Everyone, please go to drmelaniegray.com, her resources, her teaching. And obviously, we've got some organizations that need you out there. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me. I so appreciate you, and I'm honored to be able to have contributed to the message. Thank you.
Yeah, we're so glad you came. Stay warm in Milwaukee and stay safe up there, and we'll see you again one of these days.
Thank you so very much. I hope so.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please do us a favor and like, subscribe, and share with others who might need it. And you can find additional resources at SamaritansWell.com.